Drinking with Authors may contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Drinking with Authors. I'm your host, Nick Savage, author of The West Haven Undead. You can see it right behind me. Tonight's episode, as always, is sponsored by Four Horsemen Publications. That's 4 horses, not 3 or 5, but 4. Joining us this evening, it's a little counting lesson for those who are into math. Joining us this evening, we have author J.R. Trass, who has written many, many books and short stories, including the Aelfraver series. Now, Aelfraver is not spelled elf. He's going to get into all this stuff right now, but before we do that, I'm going to ask you, JR, what you drinking?
I am drinking an Irish Cream Martini, which is just, let's see, I got it down here, 2 parts vodka, 1 part Irish cream liqueur. You just shake it, throw a little ice in. It's delicious.
I have my nice Guinness extra drought. And I have to say, before we begin, because I'm the youngest of the Gen X, so I was delinquent. When I was in high school, an old buddy of mine got me into Irish cream. And, oh, is that a life changer?
How so, I guess? Is that a dangerous question?
In a good way, It was one of those things where when I started getting into more and more writing, it was always at my desk side a table or a bottle of Irish cream or a bottle of wine. It was always one of those two things. And then as I got older and realized how many calories are in Irish cream, it became different stuff.
Yeah, this is definitely like I'd say a weekend dessert drink for me normally. So cheers.
Cheers. Occasion. You don't do entire bottles in one sitting?
No, I mean, it's definitely, it goes down smooth, so it's dangerous.
It is very dangerous, and I think that's why I was doing entire bottles in one sitting. But tell us about the Aelfraver series.
Okay, yeah. So I published the first one at the start of 2021, but just to give you the overall vibe, you have things like solar-powered dragon drones, floating futuristic capital city held down by gigantic chains, cell phone apps that let you track how much magic you're consuming, hovercraft chases, meets wizard battles, and kind of everything in between. So just think like a world where magic and technology have grown up together rather than the more traditional medieval Europe fantasy setting.
So it is very much a sci-fi and fantasy mix, not just your fantasy.
Yeah, there's definitely heavy doses of like cyberpunk neuromancer style stuff in addition to dream magic and the kind of weirder eldritch creepy stuff too.
Okay, so you said the word and I have to bring it up. Did H.P. Lovecraft influence you, or his writings, not him personally, he was a jackass.
Yes, I was going to say.
did his writings influence you in any way when doing this, since you said the magic eldritch word?
Yeah, so for sure, the eldritch horror genre has evolved beyond H.P. Lovecraft in like how fantasy has evolved beyond Tolkien. You know, we owe a lot to them, I guess, but Lovecraft is a complicated guy for sure. Like a lot of stuff about him is objectively very terrible, especially by today's standards, but also by the standards of the time. But he did have like his particular cocktail of gloomy, macabre outlook created stories that definitely inspired me as a kid. Like I remember reading The Outsider when I was, I want to say 11 or 12, and it really freaked me out. Like I remember being creeped out by the idea of not knowing your own name and your own face, and then having the truth about you. Yeah, like you're the monster, you're the scary thing in the tower. And then I also, more recently, you know, when I was in college, I read a lesser known book of his called The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. And that is a dream journey that definitely heavily inspired some of the weirder stuff in the later part of my series.
Now, I was under the impression that I have actually read all of his works, and you have just proven me wrong with that last one. So I'm going to have to look that one up. What is it? The Dream Quest of
Unknown Kadath. And Kadath, I believe, is spelled Kadhath, something close to that.
Okay, I'm going to.
It's a novella, and it's very strange. It's just this guy going through this incredible dream odyssey. as he pursues, I think he's like looking for chaos at the bottom of the dream. It's interesting. It's very cool.
So you said something when you were describing your world. My brain is very ADD, which is why these questions seem random. But you said something when you were describing your world. You said floating cities held up by chains.
Yes. Here, I always have the copy sitting next to me for just such questions. So I'm talking about the capital city of New El. Try to get the glare off. This is the floating city. There are about 8 million people living there, and it's essentially the richest, most powerful people and their servants. And it's held down by a bunch of chains. Otherwise, it would just float up into space.
Okay, I was thinking like Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
That'd be
where
cool
it's floating
too.
Downwards, it's the chains prevent it from floating into space, and it looks like it's a very congested city based on what I could tell from the.
Yeah,
that is a lot of rich people, or
I
just
mean,
a lot of houses.
Thousands of years ago, according to the lore, like this is introduced in stages, right? It's not really a spoiler. I don't have like a lore dump prologue for you, but it's
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I'm not going to tell anyone what not to do, but I tend to like to just jump into the story and learn what I need as I go.
Yeah.
So anyway, the backdrop is like, according to the origin stories of humanity, right? Thousands of years ago, humanity was enslaved and governed by 2 dragons, and they had these humans build this sphere of earth and stone, and then they raised it using magic, and the chains hold it down. They wanted to create like this temple to themselves, like essentially a flying pyramid kind of idea. So the chains hold it down, and the magic keeps it in the sky.
I have to ask about the spelling.
Yeah.
AELF.
Yes.
Where'd the AE come from?
So I am a bit. I'd say I have an amateur, avid interest in linguistics. So
Okay.
the AE is definitely like old German, Norse inspired. So, like, I was reading a lot of like Norse mythology years ago, and you have things like I forget the exact name at the moment, but there's like a German name that means elf army. So there are just some people that are named elf army, which is sick. But the old German word for elf, one of them at least, is AELF. And so the idea of the Aelfraver, it means monster hunter in this world. And the Aelf are anything that isn't a human or an animal, so the others. So, like, if you are a hunter of Aelf, you are a reaper of them. And so Reaper of Aelf became Aelfraver, right? Reaper, Reaver, Raver. It's sort of just, it's like imagine in this world that it just sort of, the pronunciation and the spelling changes over time, just like words in our languages.
There's a guy on Instagram, Threads, whatever, Facebook, and he does these videos that take your old English word, like the words we wouldn't understand, like Beowulf was written in, and does the evolutionary change to what we know it as, and just goes through the different pronunciations until it becomes something we have current day. And it's very interesting because the elf with the AELF to what we elf know it as would be such a close evolution that to go back farther by like 3-4 steps would be completely unrecognizable. So it's really cool that you went back a little bit forward for your lore.
Yeah, there's actually, I can't say what it is because this would be a spoiler, but in book 2.5 of the trilogy, because I like to cheat, you do learn what the steps before the word elf were, which reveals something about the nature and the origin of the elf.
Now, is that something you made up for? Like not like are the steps before something you made up for the story, or if there's a huge person hugely into linguistics where they go, oh, I know what that is?
It would be made up for this story. I don't think you could guess this because it is based off of names and ideas that are entirely made up for the series.
That's wonderful.
I think it would make sense. Like, I I'm definitely a fan of how Tolkien like made up entire languages and
Yes.
worlds and everything. What I do is I follow Sanderson's iceberg theory, where I just do that, but I cheat. I pretend like I've done all of this huge giant pile of work. I've done enough to make it seem like I have, right? I give you just enough to give the illusion that there's a huge iceberg under the water, but you're just seeing the 10%. There's more than you get to see, but I think good writing these days, the general consensus that I've seen is like you create the illusion of incredible depth, because that way you get the best of both worlds. The reader doesn't have to work too hard to memorize everything, but you still get a sense that there's this huge, vast, untapped mine of lore and ideas to be explored. And that way you leave things open for sequels too.
Well, okay. Couple of things popped in my mind on this, and this is not me throwing a gotcha moment at you or anything like that. I don't do those. But there was and I'm going to make a video game reference here, and I don't play World of Warcraft, but there was a World of Warcraft expansion where they had this giant like C2E2 or some giant convention release for this expansion, and the developers are sitting up on stage and they're taking questions, and this kid stands up who had already like played and beaten the expansion, and he says to them, and I'm going somewhere with this, and I have to summarize what he said because I don't remember, but he's like, the character who introduces this part of the expansion died 100 years earlier in the story lore and never was brought back. So how do you justify him being, you know what I'm saying, in here? Like he came up with this complete continuity break in the video game, to which the developers were like, bro, it's a video game. Like it's not that serious.
Okay, but
readers can be that serious. So if you have this iceberg tip and some of it below that you leave open for series, would breaking continuity or making some sort of mistake like that be a concern to you or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify, because I think it's a cop out to say, dude, it's a video game, it's not that deep. I mean, it can be that deep. As one of my teachers always used to say, there's what you put in and then there's what got there in. There's what got in there anyway. Right? So like there's always subtext, whether you intended there to be or not. But yeah, for sure, I'm definitely always concerned about continuity breaks and little glitches like that. So when I say you leave things open for sequels and you give the illusion of greater depth, what I mean is you're basically, anytime you fill in an area, that becomes part of the iceberg. So it's almost like the iceberg is rising, like there's always an unlimited pile of it under the surface, to be created and generated. But then the stuff above the surface kind of grows as the series grows. So whenever you create something new and you populate a new area of the map, you're creating more iceberg, like more things that exist. And it's your job to make sure that it fits with the existing iceberg.
I'm only going to say this because I'm as pedantic and anal as I am sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't a growing mountain be a better analogy, since the mountain actually grows as the foundation? And I'm not,
icebergs are shrinking.
Yeah, and this isn't an attack on you or anything, but more on an expansion on the Sanderson metaphor.
Yeah, you're right. I guess definitely let's take it up with Sanderson, because
let's get him on the phone. Let's call him up right now.
I agree. You know what? I'd love to talk to the man about several things.
Like Sanderson, bro. Iceberg, no. Mountains in. Yeah, iceberg.
To be fair, I think he's more talking about each book as an iceberg, I think, if I recall correctly. But yeah, for sure. I agree that since we have now kind of finessed the metaphor a bit, I agree, a mountain, right? The plates are pushing up against each other. Things are driving the rock above the surface.
The plates. You remind me of a buddy of mine, which is why my mind is in this set, is he's always challenging me, which is a good thing, but he's always challenging me in my stories to make sure I know my own lore and everything like that. So I'm just like, this metaphor could be cooler if like the developing story was the tectonic plates, and as we add to it, the mountain. And that's just me, and how like you have me thinking in that mindset of what my buddy does when I'm working with him. So
That's a very good buddy to have.
Yeah. He was my best man at my wedding. He was great.
It's so interesting that you say that because I have a similar buddy, Silas Jackson, who's also a writer, by the way. And he and I work on things together, or at least we did in the past, directly. And he was also the best man at my wedding. So you have good taste in best men, I guess.
Silas Jackson is probably one of the coolest names I think I've ever heard.
He sounds like an old lighthouse, like caretaker, like a grizzled New Englander. And he is from New England, so.
Well, either that or he sounds like a Nicolas Cage character from like Face Off 2.
I'm Silas Jackson.
That was way too good of a Nicolas Cage impression.
Well, it's not my first time, Nick.
No, that's wonderful. So you said you don't make up languages in their entirety like Tolkien did.
Yeah, I like to, I definitely have a running tab of words that I've created, and I do kind of think about their overall structure, as well as taking inspiration from real languages that I know or have bumped into. So it's never a one-to-one, but I like to make sure that there's some consistency in the elements that I take, and they grow organically from that core.
I do know that Tolkien took Elvish from Irish Gaelic, and I'm sure Scottish Gaelic to a point. And then I also know that Klingon, even though it has more of a German-style harshness to it, was also inspired by Gaelic.
That makes sense. There's a lot of, I mean, I'm not an expert or anything, but isn't it true that, no, I have it backwards. Welsh got all the consonants and Gaelic got all the vowels. Isn't that what they say?
Well, yeah. Well, they're in the Gaelic lenition and how they pronounce their letter combinations changes based, you know what I'm saying, based on the vowels that follow and stuff. It's very complicated to learn once you pick it up. There's a giant learning curve to it, I guess. But there are words in Gaelic, Irish that are like I, letter combinations and stuff like that, or AE, you know what I'm saying? Just like multiple vowels in a row, but it's one sound. Whereas in English, you'd have multiple vowel sounds right there. It's like, no, these are all like one sound. And you're just like, nah. And it's very complicated. And then there's 3 distinct accents within Ireland. The northern, the middle, and the south. Can't remember what they are, like Munster, Leicester, and something else. But even within those, the pronunciation can vary drastically enough that you'd be like, oh, I thought those were 2 different words. You know what I'm saying? Type stuff.
Yeah,
and you're like, no, same word. What languages? Because obviously Irish is not a language you speak, but you're talking. I know you speak French.
Yeah, un petit peu.
You dabble in a little English.
Yes, on occasion.
Yes.
And Dutch is the other one. My father and his side of the family are from the Netherlands, specifically from Zeeland. So you're talking about dialects in Ireland and regional differences. There are, I believe, 7 dialects in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is roughly the size of Massachusetts, I think. So it's quite a diverse little area for how, in terms of language at least. Like, I grew up speaking a dialect called Brabants, which is, it's further east of Zeeland. Zeeland is like, where my family's from, is all the way on the western side of the Netherlands. And when I say all the way on the western side, you can get across the whole country in a couple hours by bus. So,
oh, that's tiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been overseas. I've been stuck kind of within the States, once to Canada, a couple times to Mexico, but nothing as exotic as going to the Netherlands or experiencing that. But yeah, a couple hours by bus. It takes me 2 hours to get to the coast from where I'm at.
It takes me an hour to get to Atlanta, and I live very close. So.
Yeah, but is that rush hour traffic?
I guess without rush hour traffic, you could do it in 45 if you.
Oh, that's not terrible rush hour traffic then.
Yeah. I guess 45 to an hour, depending on how severe things are.
Oh, that's not bad at all. No, that's wonderful.
I live fairly close. I live like close to a highway. I'm plugged into the metro system. It's just, this is one of the busiest and craziest towns in terms of driving.
No, yeah, I am now. I'm down. I know we were talking earlier saying I was from Chicago, but now I'm down in the Orlando area,
Hmm.
and so that's it. Don't come down here.
Okay, you got it.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. The traffic down here has been rated the worst in the nation.
Wow. Okay. I know
Um,
Atlanta was on that list once upon a time, but I don't think recently. I think they've done a good job of updating their highway system a little bit.
oh, if you can send the people who updated that system down here, that'd be wonderful.
I hope you like tolls because they're coming. Like if they,
Oh, we're getting them down here, and to be honest, they're trying to make it where like the express lanes have the tolls,
yeah,
so it costs money, but it'll be quicker. And me and my wife have it down to if tolls save us more than 15 minutes, we'll take the tolls. Otherwise, we'll sit in the traffic.
it's pretty reasonable. Yeah, I think everything is time and money, right? Like you
Yeah.
get money from time, and so to save time, it has to be worth a certain amount of money, and vice versa. Those are your two main resources.
Yes. Um, you are you more fluent in Dutch than you are in French?
I'd say vice versa. Just I'm more fluent in French just because I lived there more recently. I left the Netherlands when I was about 9, and I
Okay.
lived in France till I was about 13, 14. So I've been in the States for 20 years.
20 years. Okay. And you're I'm going to say something that's going to really make me sound ignorant onto how other countries work. Your English is perfect, but if you grew up in the Netherlands and France, was English your first language?
Yeah, so my mom is
Okay,
American. She's
your
from New
mom's.
England. So yeah, so my dad is Dutch. My mom is from Massachusetts, and I will say though that my particular accent blend, like I have a couple of things that I definitely took from her side. Like instead of saying Florida, I say Florida. Right? That's very Massachusetts. I feel.
It's very
Yeah,
Massachusetts. I love it.
I come from Florida. Yeah. Vodka and Harvard Yard. But anyway, in Holland, though, in the Netherlands, most people speak some amount of English, and some people speak incredibly precise English, if not with a little bit of an accent. So, like the Dutch accent is very clipped and precise. I'd have to listen to like a news clip to get it down perfectly, but every time I go back there and I come back to the States, I always end up sounding like I'm speaking with a Dutch accent for a couple days. It's kind of like, yeah, it's very precise. You have to have a bit more intent and hit the consonant sounds a bit harder, like this.
Okay. Okay. So I was a little ignorant in assuming that because but
No, I mean
yeah.
the Netherlands is also like particularly good, and I like to think it's because it's such a tiny country that really the only thing they can do is be very good at diplomacy and engineering. Those are like the two big career paths. Make sure that you keep the English and the French and the Germans happy, or you are absolutely 100% screwed, as time and history has proven again and again.
Yes.
Like the 5 biggest cities in the Netherlands were bombed to ashes twice in one
Ouch.
century, I think. So at least during World War II, it was like all the big cities just flattened, just while Germany was on its way to do bigger and more important things. So it's
Yeah.
like my uncle, my uncle is a mechanic, or at least he was before he retired. He was a mechanic for Volvo, and he would work on the big rig trucks. And to do his job well, he knew English, German, French, and of course Dutch. And he would like to say, like, I don't speak the other languages that well. But it was funny. The drunker he got, the better he got at German and French. He would speak like increasingly perfect French, for example. So my dad is the same. Like for his business, he speaks essentially like with some degree of fluency about 4 or 5 languages.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
I'm dropping the ball basically with only 3.
no. That is okay. 3 is still impressive in more than like 90% of Americans. So you're good. And I made up that statistic. I'm probably wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's helpful for sure. I feel like it definitely unlocks a different part of your brain, or it exercises a different muscle to try to think in a different language.
Yes. Um, we were talking before we started this about brand. And okay, do you remember that? I mean, we were just chit-chatting and stuff, so
Mhm.
things can fly in and out of our minds. But you had started to bring up a very good point on being an author and having your author brand and everything like that. Would you mind recapping what we were talking about and expanding on that, because you were bringing up very good points?
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember the tangent we were going off on. Uh, so these days, I mean, I'm sure it's always been a little bit true, but these days, with the fact that so many people, like essentially anyone can publish a book. So to create a profile for yourself, to make yourself stand out in the gig economy that we've entered, for better or worse, the thing to do, it seems, is to create your own brand. Like, who is X, right? Who is J.R. Trass? And so you have to decide, well, how can I present paradoxically some version of myself that is authentic seeming, right? It has to be real enough to not come across as one-dimensional and fake,
Yeah.
but it can't be entirely yourself, just because that's not how it works. I don't think we're 100% ourselves all the time with hardly anybody. So you create a palatable version of yourself. Maybe this is too in the weeds for what you were asking for, but I've given this a lot of thought.
No. This is perfect. Keep going. I love
So
it.
so like, just to give a concrete example of all this like abstract stuff that I'm yucking about, uh J.R. Tross, I guess, is it's all the stuff we've been talking about, the story you tell about yourself, right? How do you present yourself? Well, I've traveled to these places, I speak these languages. These are the things that influence my writing. These are the types of stories that I like. And I think my idea of creating a brand for myself is to present myself for uh, a version of what I really am, which is I'm a big nerd. I enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop RPGs. I enjoy playing video games of various kinds with friends and by myself. I like to read a lot of different kinds of books. So I have a lot of sources of inspiration that I can talk about. And generally, because of the tutoring side of things, I think I've gotten good at uh, just talking to, kids to adults about pretty much anything,
Yeah.
whatever topic comes up. So I'm sort of I like to think I know a little bit about a wide variety of things, and that my main objective in life is to talk to people about what they're really interested in so I can learn just a little bit more.
Um, Two things came to mind while you were talking. One is, and we're going to come back to it, D&D,
Mhm.
and your thoughts on THACO. And two, Jim Carrey had at some award show gone off on a speech in the way Jim Carrey does about how Jim Carrey doesn't exist. And
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
it was basically him pointing out that every actor, every celebrity we see, whether it be on TV or on a podcast or doing whatever interview, is, like you said, presenting the brand version of themselves, which nowadays we try and make a little more authentic to a point that, like you said, is more palatable for the
We're more
public.
highly visible than ever because there's always
Yeah.
cameras and social media pointed at us.
But how much of it do you think is something that we will either A, get tired of presenting
Mm.
because it becomes something that isn't us any longer, no longer us. Wow, that was a horrible phrasing. Is no longer us, or much like happens with a lot of influencers, where we think they're authentic,
Mhm.
and then we learn that not even something that happened years ago, because you have to give people the chance to grow, learn from mistakes. But like the recent happenings of some expletive, laden rant, that's more
Sure,
than just,
yeah.
F bombs.
Yeah, and you
Um,
you you always end up learning about somebody that you really respected, like, well, may I name a name of a famous author here for an example? Okay. So Neil Gaiman was a big influence on me when I was younger, and details about Neil Gaiman have come to light, allegedly. I don't know if it's all been, confirmed or whatever, but this the suspicion and the response to it and the credibility of the victims, of course, like, to me, that just sort of destroys your brand. That destroys, from my perspective, uh, like, he's sort of dead to me, I guess, which is unfortunate, but But I see what you're saying, right? Like as the camera is pointed at you, as social media connects you 24/7, it becomes harder and harder to hide who and what you really are. Which is why I think it's so important to be some version of who you authentically feel you are.
Yeah.
Right? Don't pretend to be into D&D if you're not. Don't do that because you will be discovered.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
I am not a rules a rules lawyer. You know what I'm saying in
Sure,
that
yeah.
sense, and that's because I grew up playing homebrew editions only.
Yeah.
I have in my 34 years of playing Dungeons and Dragons, I have never played through a module.
Yeah,
It has.
I mean, I like to make my own stuff up. You're a writer too. You know how it
Yeah.
goes.
And the guy who taught me how to play, and the friends who taught me how to play were all just like, they had their worlds that were based on, Forgotten Realms or
Yeah.
Carter or whatever, their Greyhawk they were basing them off of, but they weren't like going off the modules of that world. They were like, here's a world, let's make up an adventure within it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I grew up playing second edition, which you are too young for based on how old I have you calculated to be.
Yeah, I didn't get to start until 5th, but I have played Pathfinder and I've played some old school revival games like I'm probably not pronouncing this right, but Merkbori or Morkborg. It's like a death metal type medieval fantasy apocalyptic one. Rules light but very brutal and everything. So
the 5th edition D&D has gotten back to second edition kind of play, because with 3.0 and 3.5, and nobody counts anything after 3.5 until 5, they became, let's make it World of Warcraft, where instead of making it simple, they were like, here's 40 sub skills that you have, and here's a bunch of numbers. And like with second edition was strange because the best armor class you could have is -10. The worst armor class you could have is 10. And
I see. So it's like damage reduction, I guess. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yes. And the in a level 0 human without armor would be a 10 armor class if his dexterity modifier was 0. And like quicklings, which are like 1.5 feet tall, like elf, offshoots who had like a 90-foot movement rate, had a -4 armor class.
I see.
But like the Eldritch gods of like Cthulhu only had 364 hit points. Whereas in like D&D 3.5, a 20th level fighter would have like 1,400.
Right.
And to me, that's too much math. And I'm not saying math bad. I love math. Math is fun. But when you're playing a game, the last thing you want to have to do is have your trigonometry calculator whipped out to be able to do all these math, things.
Have you? I completely agree. I prefer to have in my books as well as in my games. I prefer it to be like epic but quick. You're always dancing at the edge of a knife. You both have knives to each other's throats, and it's like 1 misstep or 2 missteps or 3 tops, and then you're done. Have you heard of the 1 hit point dragon thought concept?
No.
Okay, so
please explain this.
I definitely found this off of a YouTube channel. I wish I could remember the person, but I don't want to take credit for it. I did not come up with this, but it is a very interesting idea. I don't know if he came up with it either, to be fair, but it's this concept. Essentially, the dragon, right, the big boss of the campaign, only has 1 hit point, but it works because all the stuff you do leading up to it is you essentially taking off its armor class, right? Identifying where the dragon lives, making a plan, gathering your forces, finding the secret weapon to take it down. By the time you do all those things, if you then are successful at approaching it and fighting it, it essentially only needs 1 hit point because you also are very like you're going to get killed instantly if you try to take the dragon down directly. So your only chance is to be as careful as possible, have the planning, get the successful rolls, and then maybe stuff will still go wrong along the way. But I'm not sure if I'm doing it entirely justice, but it's worth looking up. It's this idea that like the boss really only needs 1 hit point because it's all the prep and the story and the challenges leading up to it that create the meaningful moment of fighting the dragon.
And that actually makes sense. Even say you messed it up and you weren't saying it 100% to the truth of the person in the video you saw, it still makes sense. I play, because I moved to Florida, we don't have a big tabletop gaming group down here at all. So we do like Dungeons and Dragons online, which is very much a, your 20th level fighters have, 1500 hit point type stuff.
Sure.
Very 3.5 rules on that. But it's fun. It's not D&D to the sense that you played on the tabletop, but it's a great game and I highly recommend it. But the idea of the game shouldn't be fighting monsters every turn of a castle or dungeon.
Yeah.
Because the fights, a 3-minute fight in real life is a 3-hour fight on paper. You know what I'm saying? And an 8-hour dungeon in real life is an 8-minute dungeon on paper. So you need to, it's not that, conversion specific, but
you're right. But you got to create the stakes. The stakes are what make the emotional stakes. What led you to the moment of the fight is what makes the fight meaningful. Otherwise, it's just deducting points and numbers on a piece of paper.
And that's meaningless.
Yeah, the whole game requires you to suspend disbelief. And so I feel the same way about fights. Like every fight should be, well, I mean, as much as possible, of course, right? Sometimes random stuff just happens. Like if you punch a guard, you're going to get into a fight. Yeah. But it has to be meaningful as much as possible. The ones that you plan, the big encounters, I always try to treat it like I'm writing a story where I tie the identity of the villains to the identities of the main characters, and I try to make them opposites in as many ways as possible. I try to have there be this fundamental philosophical and emotional disagreement that keeps getting needled as they progress through the story.
If you've never played old edition Ravenloft, you should look it up and read about in the old DM's guide, Dungeon Master's Guide, for anyone who's not familiar with.
I'm writing it down. Ravenloft.
Yeah, Ravenloft. It's D&D, but it's Gothic horror, and the idea of it is there's bits of land from all the different, from Forgotten Realms, from Greyhawk, from Dragonlance, from they get sucked into this pocket dimension, and each little pocket dimension they're all connected by land, but the borders are either consciously or subconsciously controlled by the leader of that land, whether it's the king of the land or some other guy who happens to be in control of the domain, blah, blah, blah. But here's where it gets weird. Outside of the elves, and they're called Vistani, but they're changing it because of the racially insensitive tones to the, Gypsy and Romani culture and stuff like that. There weren't monsters. There are monsters. But it would be like if us in real life encountered a zombie, how freaked out a human being would be. And this is before the zombies became popular with Walking Dead and everything like that.
Sure,
if in the 1960s, a guy just walking down the street encountered like an orc or a zombie or, you know what I'm saying, a troll.
Yeah, it would truly blow your mind.
And so they have these different like horror, roles and stuff like that. See if you've gone insane and how long the insanity lasts for and stuff like that. But it's every encounter. There's no, when you're playing just like Greyhawk and you're like, oh, I'm going to wander down this path and see what happens every, a quarter mile or whatever, you do a random monster encounter. There's none of that in Ravenloft. Every encounter, from the rats that cross your path to the Vistani camp that you come across, is all planned. Now, how the characters interact with it is a different story, but it's all planned. And from a storytelling perspective, I think you would especially like that, because you seem like someone who would really enjoy that.
It sounds great. I'm going to check it out for sure. I might have to run a game in that.
Because I know a lot of actors in Hollywood now play D&D. They've always played, but it's become more acceptable and less nerdy to play D&D, because it helps not only with storytelling, but with improv skills. Yeah. And I think you were saying this not so directly, but authors should play D&D because the storytelling skills it helps develop.
I mean, I won't try to be prescriptive to anybody in particular, but I do think that it is a tool, it's an avenue, because what you're essentially doing is you're creating a story for a contained audience. And I mean, they're creating the story with you, right? You're sort of setting up the situations, and then the other half of the storytelling or more is how they interact with it and your ability to adapt. But you are still trying to think, okay, I have my target audience. How do I make them excited, happy, invested? And if you can do that with a small group of people, you can just imagine, well, what if there's 5,000 copies of each of those people to varying extents?
Yes. And that's a wonderful way to look at it. Writing wise, I know that you said the Aelfraver series is completed.
Yes. Yes, it
What
is.
do you have anything on the horizon that is planned that you're working on that you want to tease, or nothing at the moment?
Well, I can say in very bare bones what I'm working on now. I'm sort of still in the outlining, brainstorming phase for them, but I have a few different titles. They're within the same universe,
Okay.
and they take place after this series. And I'm talking about like within a decade after. So different characters, different world, different parts of the mountain that is slowly being raised from under the surface. But yeah, so the basic idea, without getting too into the weeds, is the one that I'm working on now is a think like a dystopian rundown cyberpunk metropolis where the government has essentially collapsed and now it's just being run by gangs. And in that, there is a group of people that are just trying to kind of mind their own business and subsist. And they send out little raiding parties or scavenging parties to find things in the derelict parts of the city, components and things to scavenge and repair. They do a bit of farming. They're just trying to be left alone, but there's a gang that comes in and asks them for protection money all the time.
Okay.
Enter into this a group of strangers that have a mysterious past that I won't talk about, but they kind of get embroiled in all the personal struggles of the people who live in this town in let's say a Seven Samurai style plot toward the end, where they deal with the bandits, and they are not the protagonist. The protagonist is going to be a 12-year-old kid, but that's sort of the setup of the story.
That is wonderful. So same universe,
Yeah.
but not a sequel, just a different kind of series or book within the universe.
I'm looking to branch out into different genres and different areas of the world. Like I've been, brainstorming and working with some alpha readers and stuff like that to talk about the different ideas that I have kind of out of the box. And I'm interested in doing, for example, a buddy comedy where a monster hunter who's retired, like you don't expect a monster hunter to make it to retirement because it's a dangerous job, but he was very good at it. And so he manages to retire, but he doesn't have a lot of savings because bad pension plan in monster hunting.
Yeah.
So he moves into this rundown old building in a different city from what I just mentioned, but his roommate is a poltergeist, essentially. And the rent is very cheap because the building is haunted as hell. But that's sort of the setup, right? Like the ghost tries to get him to leave. He's like, no, I'm sorry. You're stuck with me. And it's sort of a reverse haunting situation.
I love it. I love that idea. And I know that right now, Dungeon Crawler Carl is huge.
Yeah.
And
so I've heard.
I've not read it, but I think it's huge. Mainly, or partly, not mainly. I'm fucking just making shit up now. Mainly because I don't know shit about the books. I think it's huge now, partly in because there's not a lot of comedy in books nowadays.
Yeah.
Like there's the occasional joke here and here, but books are very fantasy oriented, with the occasional humor, or action oriented with you. But like from what I understand, Dungeon Crawler Carl is just kind of that funny, situationally, constant laughs kind of stuff. And I could be wrong, and I could just be talking to like fanatics of the series who are just like, it's the best thing ever, and they could be like blowing smoke up me. But from what it sounds like, is it's got that kind of premise. And I think more comedy in books, well done comedy in books, is going to be a very welcome and breath of fresh air, because Yeah.
I think I agree with you, and I think what has happened to mainstream fantasy for a long time is you'll have the attempt at humor through the sarcasm of the characters, which often just ends up feeling like acerbic and mean, and they'll just kind of be biting at each other, which again is fine. I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum or whatever, but I do think I grew up reading Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett does not take himself too seriously, but he has this beautiful ability to be extremely silly and then extremely poignant and then flip back and forth, and it feels seamless.
Yes. And that also helps when the writer is as skilled. You know
Yes,
what I'm saying? Yeah.
true. Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not putting myself in the same category as Terry Pratchett. You know,
No,
he
go
wrote.
for it. Go for it. You're good.
I aspire to be more like him, I would say.
It's funny because we'll be compared as authors, you will be compared to other authors.
Yeah.
And I get compared to people who I don't like to say on a whim like this, you know what I'm saying? Because the praise is high. And I'm like, no, I don't see it. If people see it, great. But I don't see it. It was like growing up. They're like, oh, you look like this actor. And I'm like, I don't see it. And I hear it over and over again. And I'm like, I don't see it. So when you get compared to those actors, you know, if someone's like, oh, you're just as like Terry Pratchett, you know, it's good praise.
Yeah. I'll definitely
But
take it from someone else happily, but I will also modulate it and be like, yeah, you know, I'm just out here doing the best I can. Like, it's always nice to get a compliment. I
yeah,
have gotten better about getting them in recent years. You know, but yeah, I mean, everybody, I'm just trying to be me, and so if notes of Terry Pratchett come in, then that's great because he was a phenomenal writer. My favorite, actually.
and aspiring to be as good as your favorite writer is definitely not small shoes to fill, but it's
Yeah.
also not a unattainable task. You know what I'm saying? If people start comparing you to them, then you know you're at least on your way there, if not there, which is
Yeah.
good.
Fortunately, I have hopefully many years to approximate.
Yes. That being said, where can we find you? Give us the scoop on all the shameless self promotion you want to give right now.
Well, so the main series, of course, the Aelfraver series is available on all the usual places like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo in ebook form. So I have a link tree that I can supply you if that's easy. But I'm very easily findable on social media at Trass, just my name. So Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, those are the main ones. And you know, the books are available in all formats. In terms of audiobooks, The Rave is available in audiobook form pretty much everywhere you can get audiobooks. And I'm working on the others. Those will be coming in, you know, upcoming years. Audiobooks take a long time to make.
They take forever and a day to make, and I do not envy.
Yeah. Not read by me also. I wanted to get a professional, you know. She did a fantastic job. Above
There,
and beyond what I could have managed, for sure.
there is something to motherfucker. I'm trying. You were giving me your social, so I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go follow you. And now it's like, no, you're not. Yeah, there we go.
But
Okay.
I'm happy to resupply it as needed.
No. I went to Instagram right there because as a host, I should be doing this before the episode, but I did not because I'm obviously not as good a host as I want to be. A little bit of self-deprecating humor is good because that means you can make fun of other people.
Well, allow me to build you up with a return joke. I mean, you're doing the best you can, and you got a lot of plates that you're balancing. So
I do, and I am trying, but I also, on the note of the brand that we put forward, I don't try and fake anything. Like who I am on air is pretty much who I am off of air. I try not to make even off-air, off-color jokes or anything like that. And God knows, I grew up very Gen X, so some things start to slip. And I mentioned this in a previous episode. Growing up in Chicago, I didn't realize I was pronouncing a country's name almost derogatorily. So now every time I say it, I try and correct myself, but it's gotten to the point where now I say it properly and then correct myself to say it improperly. And my wife pointed out to me because we were talking about Iran, and I was like, Iran. And she was like, why do you say it like that? Why are you
Right.
saying it? And I was like, because that's how it's pronounced. I was like, Chicago, she's like, it's Iran. It's not Italy, you're not Italian, it's Iran. So now I try, because I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? It was just one of those things you didn't know, you learn, you
learn it by
correct.
reading it. That's fine,
Yeah. Or by learning it from other people in Chicago who say it improperly. But then you learn, you correct yourself, and you do your best. You know what I'm saying? So who I am on air is often, who I am off of air, minus when I pronounce things improperly and stuff like that. But like, I'm not a, I try and do that. So I try and do my best with the podcasting and following and everything, because we ask, that we hope that the authors promote the show that they're on as much as we promote it for, them and stuff like that. So I try and go above and beyond and follow everyone, because
for sure.
it's nice to know people.
I mean, it's good cross promotion. It's good for me and good for you if more people see this episode, for sure.
Exactly. And that is Instagram, Blue Sky, and
Threads. Yeah, the other meta platform. Yes. Those are the three main ones that I'm on. It's too much to manage otherwise. I
try doing them all. You can't stick to like 3.
I'm going to work on doing a YouTube soon, and it'll just probably be my name again. So, that's the idea.
Coordinating producer does everything. My job with the show, literally, I come here, I'm the pretty face on the air. The coordinating producer makes the show happen. If it wasn't for her, I'd just be talking to myself. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for my wife, then all of these books would just be Word documents on my computer, and I'd be like, what's the next creative project? And no one would know who I am.
Yeah.
You're a good team.
It's very much, the author is just the face of the team that makes the author happen.
Yeah.
In anything that happens.
Yeah, I mean, got your, if you're doing the whole kit and caboodle, you got your alpha readers, your beta readers, your editor, your audiobook performer, and it just, the list goes on for sure. And then all the people who support you personally,
Exactly. It's an endless list just to make you successful, and we just try and return the favor where we can.
Yeah.
Speaking of favors,
yes.
If you had one piece of advice, and I do ask this of every guest on my show, if you had one piece of advice that you can give an aspiring author, just one piece, what would it be?
Okay, so when you brought up using D&D as kind of like a writing tool, a way to improve your storytelling craft, I think that's very relevant to the piece of advice I usually give, which is do workshops. Find a group of people, like other writers. It doesn't have to be a thing that you pay for. In fact, it's probably better if it's just a group of writers all doing their best, varying skill levels, doesn't matter. Get together on Discord or in person at a coffee shop, whatever you prefer, and do a rotating thing where 1 week you read the work of one person, and then you rotate through. Everybody provides feedback every time. You get a handful of very involved, dedicated opinions, people who are really trying to help you get better. Take the advice that is useful to realizing your vision. You don't need to make every single change, but that's immediate, clear feedback, and that is probably the thing that helped me improve the most. I was in a class in college that kind of started me off on the official workshop track, and I've been running workshops ever since for people. And that's like the biggest growth accelerator that I've ever seen.
Yeah. If only I were as wise as you when I was younger. It wasn't until my buddy, who was, my best man, started asking me the whys and the whys and the whys of my lore, that I started understanding that people aren't asking you questions and giving you advice to give you a gotcha or to tell you you're a bad writer, but to help improve you. Yeah. And it was when I was able to shift that mindset from they're trying to tell me I suck to they're trying to make me better, did I actually start getting better. And it was myself holding me back. So you were very wise to have, it was him and my wife, but I can't talk enough good things about them, but it is one of those things where you have caught on to some very good advice, much younger than, no, yeah. If you had just caught on to the advice now is when I caught on to the advice about it. But I'm sure you've been writing, a little longer than 2 days.
Well,
since you have 20 books out.
I've definitely gotten better about it over the years. I will say the first workshop I was in, the first real workshop in early college, destroyed my ego. I'm not kidding about that. Like, they tore into my work because it was it was anonymous when everyone threw the pile in, or at least they didn't know who I was. And then afterwards, when they heard me talking about it, I heard some people say they felt bad for how harsh they were. I was the first person that they workshopped. So everyone was kind of trying to figure out how aggressive to be. But I don't regret it. And I don't think everyone will have the same like difficult experience. But I will say the ego bruising was very valuable because yeah, what we create, you know this, what we create is deeply personal to us. And it's something, it's a window into the deepest aspects of who we are as people, how we see the world, how we think. And so there's this interesting dance you have to do where on the one hand, you have to be extremely vulnerable, but then when you get a bad review or you get harsh critique, you have to take what's useful, if anything, and then learn how to, roll with the punch.
Yes.
That can be very difficult, but with practice and exposure, you can learn to separate yourself from your ego while still being authentically you, to some extent. Right? It's all suck to get a 1-star review, whatever. It is what it is.
It is what it is, but the thing is you can't please all the people all the time, and you're going to write what you write, and it's not going to be for everybody.
And you shouldn't try to. You shouldn't try to please everybody because you'll end up pleasing nobody. Write for the people who love the kind of stuff you love. Yes. Make sure you love what you write. I guess I'm giving more free advice. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I love it. Write for yourself, and you will find an audience.
Absolutely.
And it is one of those things. I want to thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to be able to talk about everything from D&D to mountains and icebergs.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're gonna be doing this again too. So we're not done.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
I look forward to it too. And to everybody who tuned in, who listened, who watched, thank you all so much for being here. And until next time, remember, it costs nothing to be.
Thank you for listening to Drinking with Authors. Join us next time for another fun conversation with an author over drinks.